It was a busy Friday evening at Le Jardin, one of the most upscale restaurants in downtown Manhattan. The chandeliers hung like delicate stars in the sky, casting soft light across the tables where well-dressed patrons sipped wine and indulged in gourmet meals. Lily Chin, a 24-year-old waitress, moved swiftly between the tables, her dark hair pulled back into a neat ponytail, her uniform crisp and immaculate. She had worked at Le Jardin for nearly 2 years, ever since she moved to New York City from California, hoping to carve out a new life. But tonight was different. The evening was just like any other, until it wasn't. It started with a glance. Lily had just delivered a beautifully plated entree to a wealthy-looking man sitting alone at table 7. He was middle-aged, with salt and pepper hair, a tailored suit, and a glint of arrogance in his eyes that made Lily uneasy. He looked at her, then at his food, and then back at her. A curious look flickered across his face before he spoke. "Excuse me," he said, his voice smooth, almost condescending. "Do you speak Chinese?" Lily froze for a moment. Her mother had taught her to be proud of her heritage, to embrace the beauty of the Chinese language and culture. But she also knew how complicated it was to navigate in spaces where people often treated her differently because of her ethnicity. She knew the drill: always be polite, professional, never make waves. "Yes, I do," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. The man smiled, clearly pleased with her answer. "Well, then, I'd appreciate it if you could explain my meal in Chinese. I believe it would be a more authentic experience." Lily's brow furrowed slightly, unsure of how to respond. She wasn't used to customers asking for something like this. Sure, there had been the occasional person who requested a little extra attention, or even a friendly chat in their native language. But this? It felt different. It felt like being reduced to a stereotype. She hesitated, glancing around the restaurant to gauge the reaction of her colleagues. Jason, the manager, was busy with another customer, and none of the other waitstaff seemed to be paying attention. It was just her and him. "Of course," Lily said, a smile plastered on her face despite the uncomfortable twist in her stomach. She had been trained to provide the best service, no matter the circumstance. But as she started to speak in Chinese, explaining the flavors and ingredients of the dish in her native tongue, something inside her felt off. She couldn't quite place it, but it felt as though she was being treated like a servant, expected to perform an act simply because of her background. She finished her explanation, and the man nodded approvingly. "Excellent. Just what I wanted," he said, taking a sip of his wine. Lily nodded politely and turned to walk away, but as she did, she caught the eye of her manager, Jason. His expression was unreadable, but she could feel his gaze on her as if something had just gone wrong. He didn't say anything at first, but there was a tension in the air that she couldn't ignore. It wasn't until later that night that Lily realized what had really happened. The restaurant was nearing its closing hour, and most of the patrons had finished their meals. Lily was taking a short break in the back when Jason appeared, his face grim. "Lily, I need to talk to you," he said, his tone serious. She followed him to the manager's office, a small room tucked away behind the kitchen. As soon as the door shut, Jason turned to her. "I need you to understand something," he began, rubbing the back of his neck, as if he were choosing his words carefully. "You can't just speak another language to customers like that. It's unprofessional. We have a standard here, and part of that standard is to maintain a certain image. We can't just cater to every request a customer makes." Lily's heart sank. "But he asked for it," she said quietly, trying to keep the hurt out of her voice. "He wanted to know about the dish in Chinese." Jason sighed, sitting down on the edge of the desk. "I get that. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't look good. It's not the image we want to project. We cater to an elite clientele here, and we can't risk confusing them or making them feel uncomfortable." Lily stood there, stunned. Was this really happening? She had been here for 2 years, working tirelessly to prove herself. She had gone above and beyond for every customer, always polite, always professional. But now, because of a single moment, a single request, it felt like she had violated some unspoken rule. "I don't understand," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. "It's just speaking a language. It's part of who I am." Jason's eyes softened for a moment, but the firmness in his voice remained. "I know, and I'm sorry. But it's not about who you are. It's about what's best for the restaurant." Lily's mind raced as she walked back to the dining room to finish her shift. Her thoughts were a tangled mess of confusion, frustration, and disbelief. She tried to focus on the customers around her, but all she could think about was the conversation with Jason. It was clear now her identity had become an issue. Her culture was a liability. As the night came to a close, Lily packed up her things and headed to the subway, the weight of what had just happened sinking in. She had worked so hard to get here, to make a life for herself in a city that was supposed to offer endless opportunities. But now she felt more out of place than ever. What had just happened? Was this really about the language, or was there something deeper at play? As the train rattled beneath her feet, Lily stared at her reflection in the glass. She didn't recognize the woman looking back at her. Was this the price she had to pay to fit in? Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Lily Chin had always felt a little out of place. Born in San Francisco to immigrant parents from China, she had grown up straddling two worlds, one where she was expected to uphold traditional family values and another where the American dream seemed just within reach. Her parents, Mei and Jian, had worked tirelessly in the restaurant business, and they had high hopes for Lily to follow in their footsteps. They didn't just want her to succeed. They wanted her to be secure, to have a stable job with a steady paycheck and benefits. But Lily's dreams didn't align with her parents' expectations. She loved her family dearly, but deep down, she knew she couldn't live the life they envisioned for her. As a child, she had been an observer, someone who watched her parents work tirelessly in their small, but well-loved Chinese restaurant. Mei, her mother, ran the kitchen while Jian was the front-of-house manager, greeting customers with a smile and making sure everything ran smoothly. Their restaurant had been their pride and joy, but it was also a burden. Lily had watched them sacrifice their health, their time, and their social lives to make sure that their customers always left satisfied. But for Lily, the restaurant business wasn't glamorous. It was hard work, long hours, and a never-ending grind. It was a life her parents had chosen out of necessity, but it wasn't the life she wanted. In high school, Lily was drawn to art, literature, and culture. She loved reading books that explored different societies, different ways of life. But when it came time to pick a college, her parents pushed her toward a more practical path. "Become a doctor," Lily May would say. "Help people. It's a respectable profession." Lily tried to comply. She enrolled in pre-med courses at UC Berkeley, convinced that if she followed the path her parents had laid out for her, everything would fall into place. But as the months wore on, she found herself growing restless. The science courses bored her, the pressure to excel weighed heavily on her, and she began to question everything she thought she knew about herself. Was this truly the life she wanted? Was this the person she was supposed to be? Then, one fateful summer, Lily made a decision that would change her life forever. She decided to leave college and move to New York City. It wasn't an easy choice. Her parents were heartbroken, furious even, at the idea of their daughter leaving school and pursuing something so uncertain. "You'll regret it," her father warned. "You don't understand how hard life can be without a solid career." But Lily knew that if she stayed in California, she'd always be haunted by the feeling that she hadn't given herself the chance to figure out who she truly was. So, with a heavy heart and a suitcase packed with her few belongings, Lily boarded a plane to New York. She didn't have a plan, not really. She was young, determined, and willing to take on whatever the city threw her way. She had always been a hard worker, and that hadn't changed. She found a job as a waitress at Le Jardin, one of Manhattan's top fine dining restaurants, and immediately threw herself into the fast-paced, high-stakes world of upscale hospitality. At first, it was exhilarating. The city felt alive, and every day brought new experiences, new people to meet. Lily quickly made friends with her coworkers, including Maria, a fellow waitress who had been working at Le Jardin for a few years. Maria was older and more experienced, and she quickly became Lily's confidant, offering advice about the ins and outs of the restaurant business. "Just remember, it's not just about the food," Maria often told her. "It's about the experience, the atmosphere, the feeling you give people. Make them feel important, and they'll tip you well." Lily took those words to heart. She excelled at her job, learning quickly how to anticipate customers' needs and make their dining experience unforgettable. She had a natural charm and grace that made her stand out in the restaurant, and before long, she had earned a reputation as one of the best waitresses. But as much as she loved the city, as much as she thrived in the high-energy world of fine dining, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that she was still caught between two worlds. On one hand, there was her family's expectation that she would settle into a stable, traditional career. On the other, there was her desire to carve out a life for herself, one that didn't necessarily follow the same path her parents had taken. At Le Jardin, Lily had found a place where she felt valued, where her skills were recognized, and where she could be herself, more or less. But the nagging feeling that she didn't completely belong in either world, her parents or her coworkers, was always there. She wasn't quite Chinese enough for some people, and she wasn't quite American enough for others. Despite this, Lily had done her best to blend into her surroundings. She had found a rhythm, a balance between her two identities. But she still couldn't escape the occasional microaggression or the subtle ways in which her ethnic background would be called into question. She remembered one incident, not long before the evening that changed everything. A customer had asked her, in the middle of placing an order, if she could pronounce the names of the dishes in Chinese to make it more authentic. Lily had smiled politely, but the request had stung. It wasn't the first time someone had made her feel like her ethnicity was a novelty, something to be used for their entertainment. And yet, despite all the little slights and awkward encounters, Lily had never imagined that speaking her native language in a professional setting could lead to such a drastic outcome. After all, she had always worked hard to prove herself. But now, the incident with Mr. Rogers, followed by her firing, had turned everything upside down. It was a moment that forced her to reflect deeply on her place in the world, her identity, and her future. Was her culture something to be proud of, or something that would always be held against her? Was she just another ethnic face in a predominantly white space, expected to perform in a certain way? As Lily sat in her small apartment later that night, staring out the window at the twinkling lights of the city, she couldn't help but feel conflicted. The path she had chosen seemed uncertain now, and her future was unclear. But she knew one thing for sure: she wasn't going to let this moment define her. Her journey was just beginning. The following days after the incident were a blur of confusion and frustration for Lily. She'd expected some kind of confrontation, maybe even a reprimand, but she had never anticipated being fired. It felt surreal, almost like a bad dream she couldn't wake up from. The more she thought about it, the more she found herself spiraling, replaying every moment of that night in her mind. She'd spoken in Chinese to a customer. Was that really such a crime? It wasn't as if she had been rude or disrespectful. She hadn't even gone out of her way to speak in her native tongue. He had requested it. But Jason, her manager, had treated it as though she had broken some unspoken rule, as if her heritage had been a liability. The situation gnawed at her. She couldn't stop thinking about the look in Jason's eyes, The way he had explained how speaking Chinese in front of customers was unprofessional and how it didn't align with the restaurant's image. The words echoed in her ears, a constant reminder that her identity, her very essence, had been scrutinized and judged. Days after her firing, Lily struggled to find peace. She stayed inside her small apartment, barely speaking to anyone, avoiding phone calls and messages from her friends at work. Maria, her closest confidant, had tried to reach out several times, but Lily wasn't ready to talk to anyone. The sting of rejection was still too fresh. Her mind kept circling back to the same question: why? Why had Jason felt the need to punish her for speaking a language that was part of her, that was so deeply ingrained in her upbringing? Was it because he didn't understand? Or was it because, deep down, he saw her as something other? The city, once filled with opportunities and excitement, now felt overwhelmingly isolating. Despite its diverse population, New York was still a place where people of different cultures often felt like outsiders. And Lily, it seemed, had learned that lesson the hard way. One afternoon, as she sat at her kitchen table sipping tea and scrolling through job listings online, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Maria. "Hey, I'm worried about you. Can we talk? I know this is rough, but you can't let it eat you up. You're stronger than this, Lily." Lily stared at the message for a long moment, feeling the knot in her stomach tighten. Maria had been one of the few people who had always understood her. In a world where she often felt torn between her Chinese upbringing and her desire to fit into American society, Maria had always been there to listen and offer perspective. Reluctantly, Lily typed out a reply. "I'm not sure I'm ready to talk yet, but thank you for reaching out." She put her phone down, but Maria's message lingered in her thoughts. "You're stronger than this, Lily." Am I? Lily wondered. The next morning, she woke up with a sense of determination she hadn't felt in days. She wasn't just going to let this incident define her. She was going to do something about it. She decided to visit Lujardin and confront Jason. The thought of facing him again made her stomach churn, but she couldn't move forward without understanding why this had happened. She needed answers. And maybe, just maybe, she needed to hear him admit that his actions had been unjust. It wasn't the easiest decision, but Lily knew she couldn't stay locked inside her apartment forever, brooding over what had been taken from her. When she arrived at the restaurant, she noticed that the place was quieter than usual, no bustling patrons or clinking glasses. It was the middle of the afternoon, so the restaurant was in its slow hours. She took a deep breath before pushing open the heavy doors. Jason was at the front desk, speaking with another employee. He didn't notice her at first, so she stood at the entrance, taking a moment to compose herself. After a few seconds, Jason looked up and saw her standing there, the shock in his eyes immediately evident. He looked uncomfortable, like he didn't know how to react. "Lily," he said her name slowly, as if testing it on his tongue. "What are you doing here?" Lily stepped forward, trying to control the nervous flutter in her chest. "I need to talk to you, Jason. About what happened. About why I was fired." He sighed, leaning against the counter and rubbing his temples. "Lily, I already explained everything. It was just not the right thing to do. I'm not saying it was personal, but you need to understand the bigger picture here." The words, "not the right thing to do," hit her like a slap across the face. She had hoped for a real conversation, but it felt as if he was still treating it like an afterthought, something he wanted to brush aside. "No, Jason," Lily replied, her voice firm now. "You don't get to just sweep this under the rug. You fired me because of my heritage. Because I spoke my native language to a customer." Jason's face reddened slightly, but he didn't back down. "That's not it, Lily. It's about the perception, the image of this restaurant. We have a certain clientele, a certain atmosphere. And you need to be aware of that." Lily's anger began to rise, but she kept her voice steady. "You think I don't know that? I've been working here for 2 years, Jason. I know what this restaurant represents. But you can't just pretend that my ethnicity is something I can leave at the door. I can't change who I am just to make you comfortable. Jason opened his mouth as if to say something, but no words came out. The silence between them grew thick, and Lily could see the conflict in his eyes. He wasn't used to being challenged, and he wasn't ready to admit that maybe, just maybe, he had made a mistake. Finally, he sighed and looked down. I don't know what else to say, Lily. I'm sorry it turned out this way, but I still stand by my decision. Lily's heart sank. He was right. He wasn't going to change his mind. This was the kind of man he was, someone who valued the appearance of things over the truth of them. But that didn't mean Lily had to stay silent. She turned to leave, but before she stepped out the door, she looked back at him one last time. You may never understand why I'm upset, Jason. But I hope one day you'll realize that treating people like they're less than because of their background is never the right way to run a business. With that, Lily left Le Jardin for the last time, her heart heavy, but her resolve stronger than ever. The city felt different in the days following Lily's confrontation with Jason. It had always been a place of endless possibilities, but now, with the weight of what had happened hanging over her, everything seemed more daunting. As she walked through the crowded streets of Manhattan, the towering skyscrapers no longer felt like symbols of opportunity, they felt like barriers. Lily wasn't sure where to go from here. She had walked away from her job at Le Jardin, but the feeling of injustice lingered in her chest, an aching reminder that she hadn't found the closure she'd been hoping for. The encounter with Jason had been disappointing, but it had also been a turning point. She knew she couldn't let this moment define her. She couldn't allow herself to be defeated by someone's narrow-minded perception of who she was. That night, she sat alone in her apartment, staring at the blank screen of her laptop. She had been avoiding it for days, not wanting to face the job listings, not wanting to confront the reality of starting over. But something in her told her that she needed to take action, she needed to reclaim control of her life. Scrolling through the listings, Lily came across a position at a small, locally owned Asian fusion restaurant called Tao of Taste. It wasn't nearly as prestigious as Le Jardin, but something about it caught her attention. The restaurant's mission focused on blending cultures through food, embracing diversity, and offering a warm, inclusive environment for both employees and customers. It wasn't exactly the high-end experience she had worked hard to achieve, but it was something she could get behind. Maybe this was the opportunity she needed to start over, to create a new narrative for herself. She submitted her resume and wrote a short cover letter explaining her passion for authentic hospitality, her desire to work in a space that valued cultural diversity, and her commitment to offering guests an experience that celebrated food and people. The next day, she received a call from Tao of Taste. The restaurant wanted her to come in for an interview. Lily's heart skipped a beat. For the first time in days, a glimmer of hope flickered within her. Maybe this was the chance she'd been waiting for. When she walked into Tao of Taste, the atmosphere was completely different from Le Jardin. The restaurant had a warm, casual vibe with a mix of modern and traditional decor. The walls were adorned with artwork from different cultures, and the staff seemed genuinely happy to be there. The host greeted her with a friendly smile, and as Lily looked around, she noticed the diversity of both the customers and the staff. It felt like a place where people from all backgrounds could come together and celebrate food, culture, and life. The interview itself was relaxed and welcoming. The manager, a woman named Sophie, asked Lily about her experience and her thoughts on creating an inclusive environment for guests. They discussed the importance of respecting different cultures and traditions while providing high-quality service. Sophie listened intently to Lily's answers, nodding as if she understood exactly where Lily was coming from. When the interview concluded, Sophie smiled and extended her hand. "We'd love to have you join the team. You've got exactly the kind of energy and passion we're looking for." Lily's eyes widened with surprise. "Really?" Sophie chuckled. "Absolutely. We believe in providing a space where everyone can be themselves." Your experience at Le Jardin is impressive, but what really stands out is your genuine care for people. That's the kind of energy we want here. Lily felt a wave of relief wash over her. It wasn't just the job that mattered. It was the fact that she had found a place that saw her for who she truly was, not just as an employee, but as a person. She accepted the offer on the spot. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of excitement and adjustment. Lily started her new job at Tao of Taste, immersing herself in the vibrant atmosphere of the restaurant. The team was incredibly supportive, and she quickly formed connections with her coworkers, many of whom came from diverse backgrounds. She felt like she finally belonged somewhere. But as much as the new job was a breath of fresh air, the events at Le Jardin still haunted her. There were moments when she would catch herself reliving that night, when she would hear Jason's dismissive words echo in her head. She couldn't forget how he had made her feel small, insignificant, and out of place. One evening, as Lily was working the dinner shift, a familiar face walked into the restaurant. She froze for a moment when she recognized him, Jason. He was with a group of colleagues, all of them dressed in business attire, laughing and chatting as they were led to their table. Lily's heart pounded in her chest. She wasn't sure if it was the anxiety of seeing him again or the lingering bitterness from their last encounter, but her hands shook as she placed down menus at the table. Jason caught her eye as she turned to leave, and for a split second, their gazes locked. His expression faltered, as if he wasn't sure how to approach her. She quickly turned away, her stomach a mess of conflicting emotions. Later that evening, when the dinner rush had died down, Lily found herself standing in the back of the restaurant, wiping down the counter. Sophie, the manager, approached her with a knowing look. "You okay?" Sophie asked. Lily hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, it's hard sometimes. Seeing him, you know." Sophie raised an eyebrow. "You're talking about Jason?" Lily nodded again, her fingers gripping the cloth in her hands. "I don't think I'll ever understand why he did what he did. It still doesn't sit right with me." Sophie took a deep breath and leaned against the counter. "You're doing the right thing, Lily. You walked away from something that didn't serve you. And now, you're building something that reflects who you truly are. That's the most important thing." Lily smiled softly, grateful for Sophie's encouragement. "Thanks. I'm trying." But as she glanced toward the front of the restaurant, where Jason and his colleagues were still seated, a thought crossed her mind. Maybe I don't need closure from him. Maybe I'm already on the path to my own. And for the first time in a long while, Lily felt a sense of peace. The weeks passed quickly after Lily's decision to leave the past behind her. Tao of Taste had become her sanctuary, a place where she felt valued and seen. Every shift brought something new. A new connection, a new learning experience, and a deeper understanding of what it meant to be part of a community. She had finally found a space where diversity wasn't just accepted, it was celebrated. But even in the midst of her newfound peace, a storm had been quietly brewing. One particularly busy evening, the restaurant was filled to capacity, the air thick with the hum of conversation and clinking dishes. Lily moved effortlessly between tables, refilling drinks, taking orders, and ensuring every guest felt attended to. But amidst the chaos, something unexpected happened. As she was bringing a tray of drinks to a table near the window, a familiar voice called her name. "Lily?" Her heart skipped a beat. She turned, and standing by the bar was Jason. His presence felt like a shadow in the warm, welcoming atmosphere of the restaurant, and for a moment, Lily froze. She had expected this day to come eventually, but that didn't make it any easier. Jason smiled awkwardly when he saw her. "Hi, I didn't expect to run into you here." Lily took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "What are you doing here?" Jason shifted uncomfortably, his hands fumbling with the sleeve of his jacket. "I came with some colleagues for dinner." "I didn't realize this was your new job." There was a slight tension in the air, and for a brief moment, neither of them spoke. Lily could feel her heart racing, but she wasn't sure if it was because of the anxiety of seeing him again or the emotions she'd been holding back for weeks. The confrontation, the hurt, and the unfairness of it all were still fresh in her mind. "I see," she finally said, trying to maintain her composure. She didn't know what she expected from this interaction, but it certainly wasn't an apology. And yet, something inside of her hoped that Jason might take responsibility for what he had done. Jason shifted again, his eyes darting toward the floor before meeting hers. "Lily, look. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for how everything went down. I was wrong. I didn't handle things the right way. You didn't deserve what happened. I should have given you a chance to explain yourself." Lily felt a knot tighten in her chest, her throat going dry. It was the last thing she had expected him to say, and yet the apology didn't bring the sense of closure she thought it would. Instead, it made her feel conflicted. The silence hung heavy between them, and she could feel the weight of their shared history pressing down on her. This was it. This was the moment she had been waiting for, an acknowledgement of the wrong done to her, of the hurt that had been inflicted. But as she looked at Jason, standing there with genuine regret in his eyes, she realized something important. This apology wasn't for her. It was for him. Jason had come here seeking redemption, seeking to relieve himself of the guilt he'd been carrying. And maybe, just maybe, that was something he needed to do for himself. Lily took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Jason, I appreciate the apology, I really do. But you need to understand something. I'm not angry at you anymore. What you did, it hurt, but I've moved on. I've learned that I can't let people like you decide who I am or where I belong. I am who I am, and no one, not even you, can take that from me." Her voice was calm, but firm. Jason nodded, his expression softening. He didn't say anything at first, as if the weight of her words was sinking in. For the first time in a long while, Lily felt as if she had finally taken control of the situation. She had been waiting for this apology, this acknowledgement, for so long, but now that it was here, she realized she didn't need it to move forward. "I understand," Jason said quietly, his shoulders slumping slightly as if the burden had been lifted. "Thank you for saying that, Lily. I guess I had to hear it from you to understand." Lily nodded. "I hope you learned something from this, Jason. It's not about me or anyone else. It's about how we treat people based on who they are, not just what we want them to be." Jason stood there for a moment, taking in her words. Then, with a small but genuine smile, he turned and walked away, rejoining his colleagues at the table. Lily stood still for a moment, her heart still racing, but not in the way it had before. This wasn't a moment of anger or resentment. It was a moment of clarity. As the night went on, Lily felt a weight lift off her shoulders. Jason's apology wasn't the closure she had imagined, but it was the one she needed. She had taken control of her story, and she no longer felt bound by the mistakes or assumptions of others. Later that evening, as the restaurant began to quiet down, Sophie walked up to her, her eyes filled with understanding. "How did it go?" she asked gently. Lily took a deep breath and smiled. "It went better than I expected. I think I finally got the closure I needed." Sophie nodded. "Good. Because, you've been doing amazing here. I've seen so much growth in you these past few weeks. And if anyone deserves to be at peace with their past, it's you." Lily's smile grew wider, and for the first time in a long while, she felt like everything was starting to come together. Her journey was far from over, but this was a crucial step, an emotional breakthrough she hadn't even realized she needed. In that moment, standing in the middle of the bustling restaurant, Lily knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. She had come so far from that night at Lujardin, and though the road ahead would still have its challenges, she was ready to face them head-on. Because sometimes, the hardest battles weren't the ones fought with others, they were the ones fought within ourselves. And Lily had won hers. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The days that followed felt surreal. Lily had faced Jason, heard his apology, and finally let go of the anger that had kept her tethered to the past. For the first time in months, she felt lighter, free from the lingering emotional weight that had once defined her every move. Tao of Taste continued to flourish, and so did she. She had carved out a new identity for herself, one where she was not defined by what others thought of her but by her own strength and resilience. However, even as her new life took shape, something inside of her still yearned for a deeper understanding of her place in the world. She had learned to embrace the present, but the scars of the past, though healed, still held a powerful grip on her heart. One evening, after closing time, Lily sat at the bar, sipping a glass of wine. Sophie joined her, carrying a tray of empty glasses from the dining room. "You've been quiet tonight," Sophie remarked, setting the glasses down. "Everything okay?" Lily smiled softly but didn't immediately respond. She had always felt that Sophie was more than just a manager. She was a mentor, someone who had guided her through the toughest days without ever overstepping. Sophie had a quiet way of understanding people, of knowing when to push and when to let go. "I'm good," Lily said after a long pause, meeting Sophie's gaze. "I've just been thinking a lot lately. About everything." Sophie nodded, sensing the deeper current beneath Lily's words. "It's natural," she said. "You've been through a lot, more than most people your age, I think. You've had to grow up fast, and sometimes that means carrying a lot of weight with you, even after you've moved on." Lily leaned back in her seat, swirling the wine in her glass. "I thought I'd be over it by now, you know? I thought, once I got this job, once I felt like I belonged somewhere, I'd be okay. But sometimes, I still catch myself thinking about what happened. About how someone could judge me like that, based on something so trivial." "You're still allowed to be human," Sophie replied gently. "It's not about being over it. It's about understanding what happened and learning how to let it shape you, rather than define you. Your story doesn't end with them. It ends with you." Lily's lips curled into a small, wistful smile. Sophie had a way of putting things into perspective, making it seem so simple. But it wasn't simple, not really. Moving on wasn't just about dismissing the past. It was about integrating those experiences into who you were becoming. And that, Lily realized, was a lifelong process. "You know," Lily continued, her voice thoughtful, "sometimes I wonder if this is all part of the bigger picture. If all of this, everything that happened, was a lesson. A sign that I needed to learn something about myself. About how I let other people's opinions control me. It feels like every step I've taken has brought me closer to something I couldn't see before." Sophie smiled knowingly. "You're starting to understand it, aren't you? It wasn't just about the job or the people who doubted you. It was about learning who you really are and what you stand for. That's the real journey." Lily looked down at her wine glass, lost in thought. She had come so far. She had fought against her fears, her insecurities, and the prejudices that tried to box her into a corner. But the real victory wasn't in the battles she'd won with others, it was in the battle she'd won within herself. She had stopped letting the world dictate who she was. "I think I've finally figured it out," Lily said quietly. "I'm not just some girl trying to prove she belongs. I do belong. And that's enough." Sophie raised her glass in a silent toast, her eyes filled with pride. As the evening wore on and the last customers filtered out, Lily lingered in the quiet of the restaurant, her thoughts swirling like the wine in her glass. She realized that, no matter where life took her, the most important thing she could do was be true to herself. She had faced the darkness of rejection, the sting of betrayal, and the weight of misunderstanding, and yet, here she was, stronger than ever. The truth was, she didn't need anyone's validation to feel whole. She didn't need Jason's apology to define her worth. She had found peace, not because of what had happened, but because she had chosen to let it go. She was more than the sum of her past experiences. She was Lily, and that was enough. The following week, Lily received a call from a familiar voice. It was Jason. Hey, Lily. I know it's been a while, but I wanted to check in. I've been thinking about what you said, and I just wanted to make sure you're doing okay. If you need anything, or if you just want to talk, I'm here. Lily paused, the phone warm in her hand. There was something genuine in his tone, something that told her he wasn't calling to make things right, but to offer his support. For a moment, she considered how to respond. She could have told him she was fine, that everything was great. But instead, she took a deep breath and spoke from the heart. I'm doing better, Jason, she said softly. Thank you for checking in. I think I've finally found where I'm supposed to be. There was a long silence on the other end of the line before he spoke again. I'm glad to hear that. Truly. Lily smiled. Me too. Take care, okay? You too, Jason replied before hanging up. Lily stood there for a moment, reflecting on the conversation. It wasn't the dramatic conclusion she had once imagined. There was no grand reconciliation, no magical closure. But there didn't need to be. Sometimes, the end of a chapter wasn't about tying things up with a neat bow, it was about moving forward, knowing that you had grown, learned, and become something new along the way. And for Lily, that was more than enough. As the sun set outside, casting a warm glow over the city streets, Lily knew that whatever came next, she was ready. The past no longer had a hold on her. She had built a future on her own terms, and in that moment, she was at peace. Lily woke up to a crisp Saturday morning, the kind where the sunlight filtered softly through the window and the world outside seemed still, waiting. It had been a few months since she had confronted the past, and a lot had changed since that night at Tao of Taste. She had built a new life for herself, but there was a sense of anticipation now, something just beyond her reach. It was as if she could feel a new chapter beginning, even if she wasn't sure what that chapter would hold. She had come a long way since her first day at the restaurant, when she had been uncertain, nervous, and unsure of where she fit in. The work was still demanding, but the relationships she had formed had made all the difference. Her connection with Sophie had deepened, not just because Sophie was her manager, but because she had become a mentor in the truest sense. The other staff members had become more than just colleagues. They were friends, people Lily trusted, who made her feel seen and understood. But now Lily faced something new. The question she had been avoiding, the one that had lingered in the back of her mind for weeks. What comes next? She had been waiting for some grand revelation, some external sign that her life would suddenly take a sharp turn towards something bigger, something more. But the truth was, she didn't need to wait for a dramatic moment. The moment was now. As she sipped her coffee and stared out at the street, a feeling of resolve washed over her. She had learned how to stand on her own 2 feet, how to find peace within herself, and now it was time to start taking those first steps into whatever came next. The phone rang, breaking her reverie. It was Sophie. Hey, Lily. You busy? Lily chuckled, the sound of Sophie's voice always bringing a smile to her face. I'm just enjoying a quiet morning. What's up? I need to talk to you about something. I know it's your day off, but can you come in? It's important. Lily felt a flutter of curiosity. Of course. I'll be there in about an hour. When Lily arrived at the restaurant, she found Sophie in the back office, pacing. Sophie looked up as Lily entered, her eyes serious. Hey, come in, Sophie said, gesturing to a chair. I wasn't sure how to bring this up, but I think you're ready for something more. Lily furrowed her brow, unsure of where this conversation was heading. What do you mean? Sophie took a deep breath, sitting down across from her. We've been getting a lot of great feedback about your work. The regulars love you, and you've got a natural way of connecting with people. But that's not all. There's an opportunity here for you, Lily. We've been discussing promoting you to a management position. Lily blinked, her heart skipping a beat. Wait, what? Are you serious? Sophie nodded. Yeah, I know it's a big step, but I think you're ready. You've been here long enough now to understand the rhythm of the place, and you've shown a lot of leadership, even without the title. You've grown so much in the last few months, and I believe you're ready to take on more responsibility. We need someone with your perspective, someone who knows what it's like to work the floor, but who can also think about the bigger picture. Lily felt a mix of emotions, excitement, fear, and pride. This was the opportunity she had been waiting for, but she hadn't expected it to come so soon. It was a big leap, one that would mean more hours, more responsibility, and a whole new set of challenges. But it also meant something else. It meant recognition. It meant that she had truly made it, that all the late nights, all the personal struggles, had been worth it. I'm honored, Sophie. Really. But are you sure I'm ready? I've only been here for a few months. Sophie smiled warmly. Lily, I wouldn't offer this to you if I didn't think you were ready. You've more than proven yourself. Plus, I'll be here to help guide you along the way. You won't be doing it alone. Lily sat back in her chair, her mind racing. This wasn't just about a promotion, it was about her growth, her ability to step into a role she had never imagined for herself. For so long, she had been defined by what others thought of her, by the mistakes she had made. But now she was defining herself. And this opportunity? It was just the beginning. I'll do it, Lily said, her voice firm. I'm ready. Sophie's face lit up with a smile. That's what I like to hear. We'll get started next week. I'll help you transition into the role, and I'm sure you'll do great. You're going to be amazing. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Lily dove into her new role with determination, learning the ropes of management and navigating the challenges that came with it. The restaurant's pace was hectic, and there were times when it felt overwhelming. But Lily found herself thriving in the chaos. She loved the challenge of managing both the team and the customer experience, and the sense of accomplishment at the end of each day made it all worth it. She also began to take on more of a leadership role in terms of shaping the restaurant's culture. Her experiences, her struggles, and her values all influenced the way she interacted with the staff. She fostered an environment of respect, understanding, and collaboration, an environment where people felt they could truly be themselves. Her ability to empathize with others and understand their needs made her a natural leader. One evening, after the restaurant had closed and most of the staff had gone home, Lily stayed behind to go over some paperwork. Sophie walked into the office, smiling as she saw Lily working diligently. You're really settling into this role, Sophie remarked. Lily smiled, the weight of the decision she had made settling comfortably on her shoulders. I feel like I'm finally where I'm supposed to be. I didn't think I'd get here this fast, but it's been such a rewarding journey. Sophie nodded, her expression proud. I'm glad to see you so happy. I knew you had it in you. And don't forget, we're a team here. You don't have to do this alone. As Lily looked around the restaurant, she felt a deep sense of belonging. The path ahead of her was still unfolding, but now it felt like the first time in a long time that she truly understood where she was going. The future wasn't so uncertain anymore. Lily had found her place, and it was here. Working, growing, and learning from the challenges life had thrown her way. She had come to realize that it wasn't about waiting for things to happen. It was about stepping forward, making decisions, and trusting that each step would lead her to exactly where she was meant to be. And with that thought, Lily walked out of the office, ready to face whatever the next day would bring. Lily's new role as manager of Tao of Taste had given her a sense of accomplishment she hadn't realized she was missing. But just as quickly as things had started to fall into place, a new set of challenges began to emerge, challenges she hadn't anticipated. At first, the job felt invigorating. Managing a team, organizing schedules, and ensuring the smooth running of the restaurant gave her a sense of purpose. The familiar faces of the staff, the steady hum of conversations, and the occasional laughter made the restaurant feel like home. But the deeper she got into the role, the more she realized that leadership was not just about making decisions. It was about managing the unseen, the delicate balance between the demands of the business and the personal lives of the people who worked for her. One Wednesday afternoon, when the lunch rush had slowed, Lily sat in the office, sorting through invoices. The soft click of the front door opening broke her concentration, followed by the clatter of shoes on the tile floor. Sophie appeared, looking slightly disheveled. "Everything okay?" Lily asked, looking up from her work. Sophie took a deep breath and leaned against the doorframe, her expression a mixture of frustration and exhaustion. "We've got a problem. One of the servers, Ben, is out again. He's been calling in sick a lot, and honestly, I'm not sure if it's just bad timing or something more." Lily's stomach sank. Ben had been a solid worker, dependable most of the time, but lately, his absences were becoming more frequent. "Is he okay? Has he said anything about what's going on?" Sophie hesitated. "He mentioned something about family issues, but I don't know the details. I don't want to pry, but it's starting to affect the team. We're short-staffed, and it's putting a lot of pressure on everyone else. I don't know how much longer we can keep covering for him." Lily sat back in her chair, the weight of the situation settling over her. This was the kind of problem that didn't come with an easy solution. As a manager, she had a responsibility to the business to make sure things ran smoothly. But she also had a responsibility to her team to understand that people had lives outside of the restaurant, lives that sometimes required their attention. "I'll talk to him," Lily said, her voice steady. "I'll see what's going on and find a way to make sure we're all covered." Sophie nodded gratefully. "I knew I could count on you. Let me know if you need any help with scheduling or anything else. We'll figure this out." Later that day, after the last table had been cleared and the kitchen staff had begun their end-of-shift cleanup, Lily reached out to Ben. He answered after the second ring, his voice strained. "Hey, Lily. What's up?" "Hey, Ben. I wanted to check in with you. I noticed you've been out a lot lately, and I just wanted to make sure everything's okay. Is there anything I can do to help?" There was a long pause on the other end before Ben spoke again, his voice quieter now. "I've just been dealing with some things. Family stuff. It's been tough, and I'm just trying to get through it. I didn't want to let anyone down, but I've been struggling." Lily's heart softened. She had always respected Ben for his hard work, and it hurt her to hear that he was dealing with so much. "Ben, I understand. We all go through tough times, and it's okay to ask for help. But we also have to be transparent with each other. If you need more time off or a flexible schedule, we can make that work. I just need to know what's going on so we can plan accordingly." Another silence stretched out between them, and then Ben let out a long sigh. "I don't know what to do. I don't want to lose this job, but it's hard to keep up when my head's not in it. I've been trying to push through, but it's taking a toll." Lily's voice was soft, understanding. "I don't want you to lose your job either, Ben, but I need to be honest with you, this is affecting the team. You're a big part of what makes this place work, and we need you. But we also need to know you're okay. If you need to take a step back for a bit, that's fine, but we need to be on the same page." Ben was quiet for a long time before he spoke again. "I'll come in tomorrow and talk to you in person. I don't want to leave things like this." Lily nodded, even though he couldn't see her. "Okay, Ben. I'll be here. We'll figure it out." As she hung up the phone, a weight settled in her chest. She had never expected to be in a position where she had to navigate such delicate issues. Managing the restaurant was already a challenge, but managing people's lives outside of work was even more complicated. Lily had a newfound respect for the complexities of leadership. The next day, Ben came in for his shift looking worn out but determined. They sat down in the back office, away from the noise of the restaurant. "I'm really sorry about all this," Ben began, his voice low. "I didn't mean to make things harder for you or the team. It's just, everything's been a lot lately." Lily nodded, her expression calm but firm. "I understand, Ben. Life can throw a lot at you when you least expect it. But you need to be honest with me, with the team. If you need time off, We can work something out. If you need help, we're here for you. But I can't have you leaving us hanging, especially when we're short-staffed. Ben's eyes filled with gratitude. I know. I just didn't want anyone to think I was using excuses, you know? But I've been drowning in everything, and I didn't know how to ask for help. Lily's voice softened. Asking for help doesn't make you weak, Ben. It's actually the strongest thing you can do. But you've got to communicate. We're a team here, and teams don't work when people keep things to themselves. Ben nodded, looking relieved. I'll do better. I promise. Lily smiled. I know you will. We'll get through this together. The conversation with Ben wasn't easy, but it was necessary. It made Lily realize that management was about more than just schedules, customer service, and profits. It was about understanding people's stories, their struggles, and finding ways to support them while still keeping the business afloat. The restaurant didn't stop moving, didn't stop thriving, just because there were challenges. And neither did Lily. She had learned to deal with the difficulties that came her way, and as long as she remained grounded, she would always find a way forward. It was in those unseen challenges, the ones that no one talked about, that the real lessons in leadership and life were hidden. And Lily knew that, no matter what came next, she would face it head-on. Because now, she had the tools to navigate whatever storm came her way. Lily had learned to navigate the delicate balance between being a friend and being a leader. Her relationship with the team at Tao of Taste was more than just professional. It was built on mutual respect and understanding. But even with the best intentions, sometimes loyalty could be tested in ways she hadn't anticipated. One Wednesday afternoon, as the lunch rush was winding down, a problem arose that would challenge Lily's leadership in a way she hadn't yet experienced. It started with an unexpected phone call. Sophie stepped into the office, her face pale, her eyes wide with concern. Lily, I need you to sit down. We've got a serious situation on our hands. Lily stood up instinctively, feeling the sudden tension in the air. What happened? Sophie took a deep breath, hesitating before she spoke. I just got off the phone with the owner. He's been hearing some things about us, about how we're treating customers, and apparently, some people are upset. There's a rumor going around that one of the servers, Mark, has been rude to customers lately. Some of the regulars are really angry, and it's starting to get out of hand. Lily's stomach turned. Mark had been with the restaurant for over a year. He was good at his job, quick, efficient, and often the first one to jump in when things got hectic. But he could be abrasive, especially when he was stressed. Lily had noticed that lately. He seemed a little more on edge, but she hadn't thought much of it. Now, it seemed like his attitude had crossed a line. Do we have any specifics? What exactly are they saying? Lily asked, her mind already racing through possible solutions. Sophie shook her head. I don't know all the details yet, but the owner wants us to take action quickly. If this escalates, it could damage our reputation. Lily nodded, her thoughts focused. Damage to the reputation. That was the last thing she wanted. She had worked so hard to establish a positive atmosphere at the restaurant. She couldn't afford to let one person's behavior jeopardize everything they had built. I'll talk to him, Lily said decisively. We need to figure out what's going on. Lily found Mark behind the bar, preparing drinks for the evening shift. She could tell from the way he was moving, slightly erratic, more forceful than usual, that something was off. Mark, can we talk for a minute? Lily asked, her tone calm but firm. He turned around, his face scrunching slightly as he noticed the seriousness in her voice. Yeah, sure. What's up? Lily motioned for him to sit down. I've heard some concerns from customers and staff about how you've been interacting with people lately. I need to understand what's going on. Mark's face hardened, and Lily immediately sensed that he was getting defensive. It's just some complaints, Lily. It's no big deal. You know how it goes. Some people just like to make a fuss. Lily shook her head, holding up a hand to stop him. It's not just a few complaints, Mark. We're talking about regulars, people who've been coming here for years. They're upset, and we can't ignore that. I need you to be honest with me. Is everything okay? Mark looked away for a moment, his eyes darting around the room. Lily could tell that he was avoiding the real issue, but she wasn't about to let him deflect. Mark, I can't help you if you don't let me in. Is something going on? There was a long silence before he finally spoke, his voice low. I've been dealing with some stuff outside of work. Family problems. I didn't think it would affect my job, but it's been hard to keep it together, you know? I've been snapping at customers because I'm just so stressed. But I don't want to lose my job, Lily. I swear. Lily took a deep breath, her frustration softening into empathy. I get it, Mark. We all have things going on outside of work. But the way we handle stress, the way we treat people, it matters. It's not just about getting the job done, it's about creating an environment where everyone feels respected. And right now, it seems like you've been taking your frustration out on the customers. Mark's eyes dropped to the floor. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. It's just, things have been tough. I don't know how to juggle it all. Lily nodded, her tone softening. I understand. But I need you to understand something. If you can't find a way to manage this, if this continues, I'm going to have to take action. We can't let this affect the team or the reputation of the restaurant. Mark's eyes met hers, and for the first time, Lily saw a flicker of vulnerability. I'll fix it, I promise. I don't want to lose this job. I need this job. Lily felt a surge of compassion. She didn't want to lose him either. Mark had been a good worker, and he had potential. But loyalty to the business, to the team, meant holding him accountable. Okay, Lily said. But I need you to show me that you're committed to improving. I'll give you a warning this time, but if it happens again, we'll have to make some hard decisions. Do you understand? Mark nodded, his face a mixture of relief and regret. I won't let you down. Thank you for giving me a chance. The conversation with Mark left Lily feeling drained. She knew she had done the right thing, but the emotional weight of being in a position where she had to discipline someone she cared about wasn't easy. Leadership wasn't just about making decisions, it was about making the tough calls, even when it hurt. The rest of the day passed in a blur. As the evening shift went on, Lily kept a close eye on Mark, watching him carefully. He seemed to be trying harder, keeping his interactions with customers professional, but she could tell he was still struggling. There was a long road ahead before he would be able to fully regain the trust of both the staff and the regulars. That night, as the last customer left and the staff began cleaning up, Sophie came into the office to check on Lily. How'd it go? Sophie asked, her voice soft. Lily sighed, leaning back in her chair. It was tough. He's dealing with a lot outside of work, but I think he understands what's at stake now. I'm giving him one more chance, but we'll see. Sophie nodded, her expression thoughtful. You did the right thing. It's never easy, but sometimes you have to make those tough calls. It's part of the job. Lily smiled weakly. Yeah, it doesn't get easier though. Sophie chuckled softly. No, it doesn't. But you're handling it better than most. You're doing great, Lily. Lily looked around the restaurant, the familiar hum of activity and camaraderie wrapping around her like a comfort. She had come a long way since the early days of uncertainty. The challenges were tough, but with every test of her leadership, she was growing stronger. And as for Mark, she would give him the chance to redeem himself. But one thing was clear, her loyalty to the team, to the restaurant, would always come first. Lily had always believed in second chances. She knew that everyone had their struggles, and that sometimes the best way to show strength was by offering understanding, support, and the possibility of redemption. But even the most empathetic leaders eventually faced a moment when they had to decide how far they would go in giving someone the benefit of the doubt. It was the week following Mark's warning, and everything seemed to be going well. He had been showing signs of improvement. His interactions with customers were more positive, his attitude was better, and he seemed to be making an effort to keep his stress in check. Lily had hoped that the worst was behind them. But sometimes, Things weren't as simple as they seemed. One Friday evening, during the dinner rush, a new problem emerged, one that would push Lily to her breaking point. The restaurant was packed. The energy was high, the kitchen was buzzing, and the waitstaff was hustling between tables, taking orders and delivering plates of food. It was the kind of atmosphere that made Lily's heart race with excitement. This was the pulse of the restaurant, the rhythm of a night that kept everything alive. But as the night went on, Lily began to notice something off. It wasn't anything obvious at first. Mark seemed distracted again, not quite as sharp in his movements. He had been getting the orders wrong, an appetizer that went to the wrong table, a drink mix-up, a wrong order of dessert. At first, she chalked it up to the chaos of the rush, but as the mistakes continued to pile up, she started to feel a knot tighten in her stomach. It wasn't until a particularly loud argument erupted at one of the tables that Lily's instincts kicked in. She recognized the customer immediately, a regular who had been coming to the restaurant for years. She knew he had high standards and a quick temper, but he had never caused trouble before. The argument was about the food. But this time, it wasn't just about the food. It was about the way Mark had spoken to the customer, rude, dismissive, and snappy. The customer, now visibly angry, was demanding to speak with the manager. Lily's heart sank. She quickly made her way to the table, putting on her best professional face, though inside she was a storm of nerves. "Good evening, sir. I'm the manager. I'm so sorry for the trouble. How can I assist you?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The customer barely looked up. "You need to talk to your server," he snapped. "He's been rude to me all evening. I don't care about the food anymore. It's his attitude that's the problem. This is unacceptable." Lily turned to Mark, who was standing by the service station, avoiding her gaze. His shoulders were tense, his face flushed with anger. It was clear that he was embarrassed and defensive. "Mark, can you come here, please?" Lily called. He hesitated for a moment before walking over. He didn't look at the customer. He didn't even apologize. Instead, he stood there with a defensive posture, his arms crossed. "Sir, I'm really sorry for the misunderstanding," Lily said to the customer, doing her best to defuse the situation. "Mark, can you please explain what happened here?" Mark's eyes flicked to the customer for a moment, and then he shrugged. "I don't know. He was being difficult. I just told him it was going to take longer because the kitchen's backed up, and he started yelling at me." Lily could feel the tension in the air. This wasn't just a simple mistake anymore. This was about more than just one bad customer interaction. Mark's behavior was out of line, and his unwillingness to take responsibility made it worse. "Mark," Lily said, her voice stern now, "you can't talk to customers like that. We're a team here, and we don't act like that. I've given you a second chance, but I can't let this continue. Do you understand?" Mark's face darkened. "You're not going to take his side, are you? He's just some guy who wants to complain about everything. Why do I have to be the one to take the blame all the time?" Lily felt a pang of frustration. "It's not about taking sides, Mark. It's about doing your job and treating people with respect. You can't just shrug off every complaint or mistake as someone else's fault." The customer, who had been listening to the exchange, stood up suddenly, his face twisted with anger. "I don't have time for this. I've been coming here for years, and I've never been treated like this. I'm done." He turned on his heel and stormed out of the restaurant, leaving behind a stunned silence. Lily stood there, frozen for a moment, unsure of what to do. She could feel all eyes on her, on the staff, on the remaining customers, all of them waiting for her to take control of the situation. But deep down, she knew that this was a breaking point. Mark's behavior had crossed the line, and the damage had already been done. Turning to Mark, Lily's voice was quieter, but no less firm. "I think we need to talk. Now." They stepped into the back office, and the door clicked shut behind them. The air between them was thick with tension, and Lily could feel her heart pounding in her chest. She had been patient with Mark. She had offered him a chance to improve, but this was different. This was a reflection of his attitude, of his inability to take responsibility for his actions. "I've been more than fair with you, Mark," Lily said, her voice cold now. "But you can't keep doing this. You can't keep treating customers like this. I'm sorry, but I can't allow this behavior to continue." Mark's face reddened with anger, his jaw clenched tightly. "You're firing me?" he spat, his voice thick with frustration. Lily sighed, feeling the weight of the decision in her chest. "I'm not firing you yet. But I can't have you on the floor again if this is how you're going to behave. I need to see a change, Mark. And if you can't make that change, then I won't have a choice." There was a long, painful silence between them. Mark's anger was palpable, but there was something else there too, regret, maybe, or fear. It was hard to tell. Finally, he spoke, his voice low. "I'm sorry. I'll do better. I swear. Just don't fire me." Lily shook her head. "I don't want to fire you, Mark. I want you to succeed. But I can't keep making excuses for you. You need to show me that you're committed to changing." Mark nodded, though his eyes were still filled with a mixture of resentment and embarrassment. "I'll fix it. I promise." The rest of the night passed in a blur. Lily found herself lost in thought, replaying the conversation over and over in her mind. She didn't want to give up on Mark, but she knew she had to protect the integrity of the restaurant and the team. The tipping point had come, and Lily had made her choice. She had given him the chance, and now it was up to him to prove he deserved to stay. But as she stood in the quiet of the office, the weight of the decision was heavy on her shoulders. Leadership was about making hard choices, and this moment had shown her that sometimes the hardest thing was knowing when to hold on and when to let go. It had been a week since Mark's last chance, and Lily could feel the pressure mounting. The restaurant had been unusually quiet, and despite the dip in customer traffic, the team was still operating at full capacity. It was a strange combination of uncertainty and hope. She could sense the tension in the air, staff members were on edge, waiting for the next big move, and Mark was still walking the line between redemption and failure. Lily spent the week working side by side with her team. She kept a close eye on Mark, watching for any signs of progress or signs that he was slipping back into his old habits. But as each day passed, she noticed something that gave her hope. Mark was trying. He made more of an effort to smile at customers, to keep his cool when things went wrong, and to acknowledge his mistakes. It was a subtle change, but it was there. The restaurant was buzzing with a renewed sense of energy, and there was a new level of camaraderie among the staff. Even the regulars noticed the shift and began offering their feedback. One evening, as the dinner rush began to slow down, Lily stood by the bar with Sophie. They were talking about the upcoming menu changes when the front door opened with the familiar jingle of the bell. A regular customer, Mrs. Thompson, walked in, her usual smile plastered across her face. Lily felt a little weight lift from her chest. Mrs. Thompson had been one of the more vocal critics of Mark's behavior, so if she was returning with a smile, it meant something had shifted. "Good evening, Mrs. Thompson." Lily greeted her warmly. "It's so good to see you. Your usual table." Mrs. Thompson nodded, her eyes scanning the room. "Yes, please. And I must say, Lily, I've been hearing some great things about the service lately. It's been so much more pleasant in here these days." Lily's heart skipped a beat. It wasn't often that a customer went out of their way to praise the service in such a glowing way. She was tempted to ask who the staff member was that had made such an impression, but she already had a good guess. "Thank you so much, Mrs. Thompson. I'm glad to hear that. I'll make sure the team knows." As she escorted Mrs. Thompson to her table, Lily couldn't help but glance over at Mark, who was serving a couple at a nearby table. He caught her eye for a brief second, offering her a small, almost uncertain smile. For a moment, their eyes locked, and Lily saw something there, something she hadn't seen in him before. It was a look of pride. And maybe, just maybe, it was a look of redemption. The following morning, Lily called a staff meeting. She had been thinking about this moment for days, weighing the pros and cons, but the time had come. It wasn't just about Mark. It was about the team, about everyone coming together and understanding that growth came from support and accountability. When everyone gathered in the back room, she stood before them, feeling both nervous and determined. All right, team. I want to start by thanking each and every one of you for all your hard work over the last few months. We've been through some tough times together, but we've also seen some incredible moments of growth. And it's because of you that this place continues to thrive, Lily said, her voice steady but full of emotion. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. The room was quiet, the staff members watching her carefully, waiting for the next part. I also want to address something important. Last week, I had to make a difficult decision about Mark. As you all know, it's never easy to call out one of our own, but I believe in second chances, and I believe in this team. I've seen Mark work hard to improve, to show that he wants to be better, and I want to give him the chance to continue that journey. There were some nods around the room, and Lily saw a few hesitant looks from some of the staff members who hadn't been as sure about Mark's commitment to change. She understood their wariness. It wasn't easy to let go of past mistakes. But this isn't just about Mark, Lily continued. It's about all of us. We are a team. And every one of us plays a role in making this restaurant the place it is. If one of us falters, we all feel it. But if one of us grows, we all grow. So, I want to ask you all to support each other, to hold each other accountable, and to make sure we're always working to be the best version of ourselves. For the sake of the team. For the sake of this place. The room was still, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Then, Sophie spoke up. I think we can all agree, we've seen changes in Mark. He's been making an effort, and I think we should give him the space to prove that he's committed. We're all here to help each other. The others nodded in agreement, and Lily felt a surge of relief. It wasn't easy to win back trust, but it was possible when the whole team worked together. They weren't just a group of people who worked side by side. They were a family that believed in each other. Lily looked over at Mark, who was standing at the back of the room, his eyes fixed on her. He gave her a slight, almost imperceptible nod. It was a silent acknowledgement of everything that had happened, the tension, the mistakes, the growth. He was still here. He was still part of the team. Later that night, after the dinner rush, Lily stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. She reflected on everything that had led her to this moment, the struggles, the challenges, and the lessons learned. She had come so far since taking over as manager, and every decision, every hardship, had taught her something valuable. But the most important lesson she had learned was about leadership. Leadership wasn't just about being in charge. It was about helping others grow, supporting them when they stumbled, and making the tough decisions when necessary. It was about fostering an environment where people felt valued and where mistakes were opportunities for improvement, not failure. And tonight, as the staff laughed and cleaned up the last few tables, Lily knew that this was only the beginning. The journey was far from over, but she was ready for whatever came next. Because sometimes, the hardest lessons were the ones that led to the most meaningful victories. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?